I'm Charles Leese, and I was raised very Christian. I went through a uh, anti-theist phase, and now I'm more of a generic atheist.
I'm John, and I'm confident that God exists, and I reached that conclusion through thoughtful and reasonable faith, and I personally find the message of Jesus to be the world's best hope.
And I'm your host, Steve Lowe, and this is the Experimental Podcast, where I bring in two guests on opposite sides of an issue, and we attempt to have an informed, intelligent conversation. I have three goals, three hopes for this conversation, and these are lofty goals, I know, but I hope that we can acknowledge the truth on both sides, uncover the nuance between the sides, and most importantly, recover the humanity that we all share. So let's go inside the divide. So welcome, John and Charles, to Inside the Divide. We're going to talk a little bit about faith, Christianity, and atheism. And I don't know, Charles, why don't we tell us a little bit about yourself? And let me remind you of the rules real quick. We have three rules here on Inside the Divide. First, it's be kind, then be clear, and be calm. And as long as we can follow those rules, I think we're going to be okay. And if we can't, then we don't know what we're going to do because we haven't had that problem yet. I'd like to not have that problem today.
Right. Sounds good.
Tell us, where are you from? I've known both of you guys for quite a long time.
It has been a while.
But give us a little background on Charles Leese.
Sure. I grew up in Ellicott City, Maryland. Still live there with my wife and a nest load of children. Growing up, I went to church a lot. Columbia Presbyterian, and a number of years ago, about 15 years ago, I kind of had a bit of a amusingly, ironically, come to Jesus moment and kind of said, I don't think this is quite real. What's going on here? And I went through a very belligerent anti-theist stage where I was kind of a bit of an asshole to everybody about faith, and I've toned it down a bit, but I still have very strong opinions. I'm just going to try to keep them kind. For today.
Okay. John?
Cool. So I'm John, and I'm also grew up in Ellicott City, Maryland. I also have a wife and a mess of kids. I'm a pastor, I'm a musician, a record collector, Scrabble player, an old friend, and I grew up in church, and I'm still there.
And you said Scrabble? You're still playing Scrabble?
I do.
I like Scrabble. I'm a Words with Friends guy. You play Words with Friends a lot?
Not as much.
Not as much. Well, maybe we should. Anyway, so who wants to dig in? I mean, John, why don't you tell us why you're so confident that there is a God?
Well, okay, so I say I'm confident that there is a God because after a life of, like I described, thoughtful and reasonable faith, which we can get into what that means. It is clear the more I look, the more I see it. It's not something where the more I search, the less I see. I will say initially, very simply, and I know this is not a very intellectual argument here, but I'm a musician, a composer, arranger, and I can tell you personally that symphonies don't just happen. And I know there's a lot of argument over intelligent design, and there's design in this and design in that. It's more than design, and I think that what we uncover through conversations like this in the nature of humanity, not just biologically, but when it comes to the spiritual levels and our intuitions and our instincts and things like that. There are a lot of things that are symbiotic and they work together, and there are a lot of things that are in common, and they all point kind of to the same thing. And I would call that thing someone, and that would be God. I think it may be healthy for this conversation just to make sure when we throw words around,
definitions matter.
We know what they mean. So I love, you talked about nuance, and you already brought the nuance with the anti-theist versus the atheist.
Right.
And just to clarify the difference between those, and just so we kind of
Sure.
know.
Yeah, I think we got a couple definitions that we can talk through. So when I said I was a belligerent anti-theist, I meant that like if you came to me and you were like, I believe that the God of the Bible is the God of the Bible, my response would be, you're a terrible human being and don't know what you're talking about. And that doesn't really convince anybody to change their opinion. I had this strange feeling that I had to change everybody's opinion. As I've gotten a little bit older, I've toned that down a little bit more. Now it's just like, you're allowed to believe what you want. You can be wrong. It's okay.
You were the evangelical atheist.
To a large extent, yeah. And that came from spending
Yeah.
a lot of time reading the Bible. And a lot of the same, basically, it's interesting to hear you say that you came to your conclusion through a lifetime of thought and all that stuff. And I came to my conclusion through a lifetime of thought and experience. And it's kind of an interesting diverge. I think one of the words we should define, though, for this discussion is God. What do you mean when you say God exists?
So as far as defining God, that can be a loaded question.
Indeed.
But
Yes.
my understanding of God is God is a being, that is a person with intellect, emotions, and will. That God is ultimate in everything. By definition, you can't have someone named God that is, say, bad at ping pong, right? And someone else that's better at ping pong than God. My definition of God would be ultimate in everything.
All the omnis, like the omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient.
Yeah,
All the
I mean,
omnis.
you could say that.
Okay.
I would define God as perfect and not without flaws. If there were found God to have flaws, then that would, I think, lessen our definition of God.
I don't want to interrupt you, but just a clarification on that. So this is a fun one that I've had with the whole like God is good, God is perfect. So it's all about God as being perfect.
Yeah.
Do you mean that, like definitionally, by mere existence, it is perfect, and whatever it is like, that is perfection by definition. We may disagree for whatever reason. I don't think that you should do that. Well, that's great, Charles. You're a random human. You are not God. You are wrong. God is perfect because God is that. Is that where you're going? Like God and perfect equal the same thing? Or do you say like perfect is a thing and God is a thing, God just happens to be perfect? Does that distinction make sense?
It does, but I'm not sure perfection exists outside of God.
Okay.
But I would say, by definition, I guess the way I would think of it in terms of, say, like a job description, like say,
Sure.
Help wanted, and here's the job description. We want to hire God. We would have to hire a being that is ultimate, a being that is perfect.
Okay.
I would argue a being that is eternal, such that there is nothing that's before God, or there's no God that comes after God. And then a being that would be everywhere. That's an omni, right? Yeah. Omnipresent, right? Mm-hmm. And in a lot of ways, those things may sound irrational, but I do believe in truth. I think truth exists. I think truth in its own sense is ultimate. I mean, we go to court and we say, truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth. The truth, I mean, we can have a round of witnesses, but the videotape doesn't lie, right? The truth is the truth, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, without AI, right? I mean, truth by nature has to be
there is truth. There is a truth.
right? And truth by nature has to be perfect. If it's
Okay.
if it's mixed in with things that are not truth, then it's less than truth. Truth has to be eternal. I don't think 2 + 2 became 4 or will stop being 4 at any point. It just always was 4, and we discovered that. And we come to terms with it accordingly. I think truth is everywhere. It's omnipresent, if you will. 2 + 2 is 4 everywhere you go. I mean, truth doesn't change when you go to a different place. Now, obviously there are subjective truths.
Then you get into that's where you run into stuff that I don't have the expertise on, but you run into like quantums, right? And all that sort of stuff can get really weird. You're counting a different base. 2 + 2 is no longer 4. right?
Okay.
2 plus 2 is only 4 in base 10. If you count in a different base, it's going to be some other number. So it kind of changes that. So that to a large extent, I don't know if we're getting off topic, so I didn't mean to interrupt you, but like the truth now becomes a discussion of truth is true from a certain point of view. I don't know if you've seen the one of like the 6 on the floor, and one person's like it's a 6, and the other person's like it's a 9, and they're both.
Obviously, yeah.
So I think what you're getting at was kind of the idea of an absolute truth. There is an absolute truth, no matter what, and we may not know it, but God does know it. Is that what you're kind of getting towards?
Yeah, but even at a deeper level, I think there are things that we universally understand about truth. I mean, in order for us to even have
Sure.
relationships with each other, right? But I would argue that the things we universally believe about truth, we instinctively believe about God. And if you don't believe that God is one of those things, and you're inclined to not believe in God. But if you met a being that was ultimate and perfect and eternal and everywhere, that being would be God.
Sure.
So, and then on a deeper level, not to get into, this isn't really a debate about the Bible, I don't think. But
it can turn into that.
But the Bible does.
I don't know how we're not going to talk about the Bible.
I think that's going to come up.
We got
Yeah.
a Christian here in the studio. I think we're going to get there.
But the Bible does identify God as truth. I mean, Jesus literally said, "I am the truth."
Well,
and
yes.
he's also called the Word of God. The Bible says the Word is truth. It's all woven through that thing. So I think, to understand the concept of a God as this being that is all of those things is instinctively woven into us as we understand, concepts like truth.
Okay. I find it interesting that none of those definitions, I mean, not interesting, sorry, that sounds too much of an asshole. That's a good definition of God. I can agree with that. But there's nothing about it. Now, my question for you would be like from the faith side of how you then decided that out of all of the religions and all of it's the standard. I mean, I'm sure you've heard the discussion a million times, right? Yeah. Like there's a bazillion different gods, a bazillion different religions, and you are convinced that this one is correct. But the definition of God you have fits for most of them, not all. I mean, the Greek definition of God is classical Greek is pretty different. But, I'm pretty sure Hindu has a little bit different definition of God, and there's some different things around there, which is fine. But you're just using the big three, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Like those three all have the same sort of monotheistic concepts. Your definition of God would fit for all three of them. But going into the Bible discussion, so how are you so confident that the Christian God's the one that's real, and the bigger challenge, and this is where my belligerent side comes out, and the bigger side is, why is that one worthy of worship or worthy of reverence or anything?
Right. And again, that's where I would distinctly say, apart from Judaism, Islam, where I say the message of Jesus is the world's best hope.
Can you define that, by the way, what the message of Jesus is?
Sure. Sorry, but before that, real quick. When it comes to understanding God, all three of those religions draw their roots from the Bible, right?
Sure.
Yeah, and so the idea of God in Judaism, the idea of God in Islam, the idea of God in Christianity is the same. What sets Christianity apart is Jesus and this message of Jesus.
I would actually disagree pretty strongly about the idea of God being the same between all of them, because I think you've got some pretty drastic different levels of reverence, I guess would be the say to see. But in my knowledge of the three, Christianity makes God a lot more approachable and a lot less set apart. And so it kind of
Jesus made God approachable. Yeah.
Right. So, and then you also run into Christianity's got the 37 flavors, so you got other flavors. Some of those are a little bit closer to.
There's only 37.
So that some of those are very like Jesus said, approachable, and a lot more. Some of them are much closer to the way it seems like Judaism or Islam treat it. Like Judaism tends to treat it a little bit more abstractly, in my understanding. So I think there's a bit difference there, and then you get to other. He said every religion treats it a little differently, but anyway. Back to where we were saying about the message of Jesus.
Right. So when I mention the message of Jesus, I think that there is I mean, yeah, I think approachable is a great word. What he did, according to the Bible now, I know,
Sure.
Is Jesus brought to real life in a tangible form what some would call the kingdom of God. I know Steve likes that word, but also opens a way for men to directly access and have fellowship and a relationship with this God in a way that had not been known among Judaism and Islam.
Theoretically, yes.
I
but it
mean,
runs
that's
into,
that's
yeah.
the concept of it. Yeah.
It is. I'll agree with that. I think it just like runs into the challenge though of like you mentioned faith and then his message being the hope for the best hope for the world. I think I step back and I say that faith is problematic in and of itself. I don't necessarily think that faith in and of itself is a good thing. And if we define by that, I mean, if we define faith, take it out of the religious,
Sure.
the God thing for a second. If we define faith as believing something without evidence, that's how it's already, is that an acceptable definition? So I think that's problematic for society to believe something without evidence. The evidence doesn't need to be rock solid every time, right? Like, I can't see my car, but I'm assuming it's still out there, but it was there when I left it, so I'm pretty sure. There's some evidence, right? So I always have struggled then with the idea that faith in this God, you need to have faith. You need to have faith. I don't think that faith is good. You have to have evidence. And then you can use faith to sort of fill in the gaps. And I think that having lauding faith and saying faith is a positive source or positive force is a bad thing. I think that people are better off if they show me, trust but verify, prove it, and then there's an element of like, sure, I'll agree, like you got 80%, I'll grant you the last 20, but going into it with this idea that like I don't know how things are going to happen, but God's will is, in my opinion, really bad. I mean, everyone knows a joke about like the guy drowning and like the boats show up and it's like, oh, he finally drowns and God, I thought you'd save me. I did. I sent things to save you, but what were you doing? So I think that's why I think faith really is a detriment to people and to society, is believing in things without any evidence.
Right. And I think, and I would agree. I would just distinguish that from there is such a thing as unthoughtful, gullible, blind, unreasonable faith.
Sure.
That can be dangerous. The idea that if I fly a plane into a building and I will be rewarded with, that's an unreasonable, unthoughtful faith to just believe something like that.
So actually, hold on a second. Why is that more unreasonable though? If my holy book tells me that'll work, and your holy book says other things, why is that unreasonable?
Because we have again certain instincts and intuitions that inform us, and I think there are ways that we can make statements of faith. First, here's an example.
Sure.
We've searched the oceans a bit, right? Probably not a whole
much.
lot.
Sure.
Right. We have discovered a lot of fish and sea creatures. Are there more fish in the ocean that we haven't discovered?
Probably.
Yeah. I would say yes, there are. Now, can I prove that there are more fish in the ocean that we've never discovered? No. But I also know that, well, we've only searched this much of the ocean. I know that there's a lot we haven't searched. I also know that the more we look, the more we find. I also know that there's a pattern and an inertia to discovery and history that people find things, and I trust they will continue to find things. So do I know what these fish are? Do I know what they look like? Do I know what they're going to be called? No. Will they start to exist the minute we discover them? No. They already exist now, and somehow I'm confident that they are there. There are there are bugs we don't know about. There's bacteria we don't know about. We're always finding, quote unquote, new species you and I know they're not new. They've always been there. We just
Didn't know about 'em.
found them, right? But for me to say that there are more fish in the sea that we don't know about, would be a statement of reasonable faith. It's a statement of faith, but it's a reasonable statement. It's not an uninformed, blind, jump in the dark and hope for the best. And I think that you can, in the same way, you can approach God the fundamental, does God even exist? Question, not to get into all the theology and, all that stuff. But the fundamental question of does God exist, I would say you take that same approach.
Okay.
In that that our understanding is limited and it's finite. And it could be that God exists and you just haven't discovered God yet. That's a possibility. It could be, I can't tell you there are no paper clips in this room. I haven't looked through the whole room, but
Sure.
It's,
no, I get where you're going with that.
There's a limit to what we know. Secondly, I believe the more you look, the more you'll find, which is a Bible verse. But I think the inference from history and the pattern and the inertia of history, if I could say that, and the pattern of plenty of people that have had anecdotal experience, testimony. There are some idiots, that have done that. There are also some very bright people that have also encountered God and believed God. And
Sure.
I think you can take that as evidence that, well, maybe there's a God and I just haven't discovered God yet, as opposed to saying God doesn't exist. That would be like saying the other fish in the sea don't exist.
So here's how I would disagree with that. And it goes back to that initial definition of God, which is why I had to bring that up. I disagree that you can logically make the assumption that God exists, given that earlier definition. All the omnis, perfect, true, eternal, et cetera, emotional, a being. I think that definition would be more like less saying there is more fish that we haven't discovered and closer to saying there is a blue fish that is 9 feet, 3 inches long with green scales and red eyes and a purple. You're getting very, very defined. And I think that is where, are there fish we haven't seen? Absolutely. What are you sure they're going to have all of these? No, that's now you're into that point of you've jumped too far, jumped the shark.
And that would be theology, what we call theology.
Correct.
And that is.
And so if you come to me and you said I think it's reasonable to say that there is a higher power that might be, so there's things we don't know and can't explain. I'll be like, sure, there are things we can't explain. I think the biggest challenge I have is though, everything we've discovered has been real. And by physical, I guess we have the right phrase. Everything we've discovered has been physical.
Sure.
So running into this idea of the non-physical, and then saying that, well, we keep discovering new stuff, so we're going to define non-physical things. I don't agree with that, because to me it comes into that sort of like there's infinite numbers between like 0 and 1, but none of them are 2.
Right.
So you have all these different options. We're going to find different things. We're going to find out new stuff about the universe. I don't think that necessarily means that one of the things we're going to find out is there is a being that has human-like emotions, that has lived, whatever our definition is, lived forever and will live forever. And I think that's the extreme jump.
Yeah.
I think sure, there's probably some power out there that I don't know about, and we're all living in a cosmic turtle bowl. Okay, that might happen, but
Okay.
so what?
Oh, that's fair, and I wanted to quantify it because I wanted to specifically say like I'm talking about just whether or not God exists. I'm not saying specifically any theological version.
Okay.
Of God. But on that, I'm gonna ask you a question.
Sure.
Do you believe in any aspect of supernatural, spiritual, soul? No.
Because to me, let me preface that. When you get kids young, it gets ingrained early, and it gets very forces you to logically to think through what you were taught. So like when you were raised a certain way, you're going to instinctually say, "Oh yeah, sure, that's how that," and then you go, "Wait a minute, if I have to think about it, I actually don't really agree with that." So again, I was raised very Christian. I was beat over the head with the Bible essentially as a child, and so instinctually, when people are like, "Hey, this thing supernatural. I have this childlike instinct to be like, well, yeah, that's souls are a thing like that. But as I've gotten older and done more, I hate to use the term research because everybody calls Googling research, which is terrible. But as I've like lived life more, yeah, right?
ChatGPT.
Yes, exactly.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Or Grok. No. But as I've lived life more, I've come to a conclusion, in my opinion, everything has a physical reason. Everything has a physical thing. And there's no removing the physical. Now it gets a little weird with the whole quantum stuff. I don't know enough about that to be able to say anything, but none of that makes me think that there is a soul life force behind you in your inhabiting your body that exists separate from your body. I think your soul is just the neurons firing in your brain.
Okay. So I would assume along with that, you wouldn't believe in miracles or anything miraculous.
Well, correct. I do not believe in anything miraculous. However, weird crap happens, but it doesn't need to have a miraculous. I think if it had a miraculous explanation, it would be more disturbing than it is what it is.
Okay.
And that's where we're getting more into the theology and away from
Right.
just
No,
existence.
but that's an important distinction because
Yes.
there are atheists who still believe in spiritual,
No.
I'm a spiritual person
No,
and I'm in
no.
my development and my meditation and all that stuff. I just don't believe in God. But I just wanted to clarify. So you not only don't believe in God, you don't believe in anything that would be in the metaphysical.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No. So like for me, like, I mean, you get to a weird thing. Like you mentioned truth, which is always a fun one. That's a very common topic in like metaphysics when you take philosophy classes in college, which was way too long ago. I think truth is a thing, but I don't think truth is a thing you can like touch, reach out and touch.
Sure.
But there's still a logical or physical-ish aspect to it. It's not a woo-woo, this is truth.
Right.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
Okay. No, it does. It does. So I think when I talk about discovering God, I can see why that would be a roadblock for you because you're thinking merely naturally, physically discovering, like,
Sure.
I'm going to drive my car off a ditch and accidentally bump into
God.
the Lord.
Yes.
Like, and
Right.
And I would say, as far as definition, when I talk about discovering God, I'm talking about in a spiritual sense. I haven't physically seen God. I haven't, God is not like tapping me on the shoulder and whispering in my ear. Like, no.
But internally, like
There is a spiritual connection that I think when you search spiritually, you can find God. And so that's when I talk about discovering God. And that is different from the fish in the sea.
Yes.
Definite. Yeah. Absolutely. But I just want to make sure that
No, that
is
makes-
clear. I'm not saying like, you just didn't look hard enough. I don't mean it physically. I'm talking in a spiritual
Yeah, so I think that
consciousness search.
the spiritual consciousness thing humans are really good at tricking themselves, in my opinion. And so to me, I don't see any difference between the two. And like you said, the more you look, the more you find. I'll absolutely agree with that. The more you kind of get into that environment, like I said, especially as a kid, you get kids into that, it is so easy to just, I don't want to say brainwash because it sounds more malicious than I think it's meant, because this is just, what you believe or what a parent believes, and you want your children to share those same values, I guess, or whatever. But I think it's really easy to brainwash, and it's very easy for people to brainwash themselves, in my opinion. I mean, you can do it yourself as you go. Like, meditation, I think, is a thing. I don't think it's spiritual, but I think, just going that whole, like, meditate, like, let stuff go. That's all internal. Or, hey, yeah, this is a real problem. You can dwell on it and dwell on it and dwell on it. It becomes a big problem, but nothing's physically changed. It's all in your head. You've managed to build up these different things. So to me, and I know that sounds dismissive, and this is where I'm not being belligerent. There was a time when I've been like, you're crazy because you feel like you can talk to but I think that there is an element of,
And trust me,
Yeah.
the Bible can be just as belligerent.
oh, if we start talking about the Bible, that's where the belligerence come out.
I definitely want to get to the Bible,
I mean, I understand that you would call someone of faith crazy, and
Right.
obviously, I mean, the Bible calls the atheist a fool.
Yes.
Literally. I mean, hey, the insults fly both ways here.
Yeah. So let me put it this way.
But I appreciate your
Let me ask a question.
gentleness and kindness.
Is it fair to say like the divide kind of starts at whether or not you're initially spiritual? Because it's like you're looking for God because you're in like you could. We've used the phrase "use your spiritual eyes." Okay, I don't know if that's the best phrase, but you're starting from an assumption or a foundation of being spiritual, and oh look, I found more fish.
Open your heart.
Fine, open your heart. Where you're like, no, I'm not I'm not starting with some. I'm not. I can't. You probably can't even get to that. And you probably could. You probably know exactly what it felt like, what it used to be like to be spiritual, and then oh look, there's fish. Is that fair to say that it like almost a precursor of discovering God for you guys is to start out with a spiritual assumption? I don't even know what the right
I think
word
that's a good way to phrase it. The assumption that something exists outside of the physical realm, using like fantasy terms, right? The physical world, and there's all the other stuff else, right? Yeah. If you start with the assumption that that exists, then I think if you don't start with that existing, there's no discussion. What is this God thing you're talking about, right? Like if you're explaining something like there's some being out there, okay, and somebody should be able to reach out and touch him. Well, no, he's spiritual.
So, but you would agree that you're going to start with a spiritual antenna or something, and then you're going to find God, which means if you don't start with that, you're not going to find God.
Right. And
do you find? I mean, I find that a little problematic though, because I feel like if God is real, then whether or not we've got our antennas up, it seems like
God can give you an antenna, Steve. So you got to remember I'm sorry, I'm jumping in on your stuff. But the reality is the rocks and the trees will scream out according to the Bible if he's real. So they're not screaming loud enough. I mean, maybe that's what all the climate change is, but they're not screaming loud enough. So
I did not see that coming.
That's right.
The earth.
Can that be the headline? Jesus predicts climate change.
Right. So, but I think like the theological answer to that is just that God would give it to you.
Well, sure. I guess I think I feel that there is a spiritual sense innate in everybody. I don't think that we are born without a spiritual sense, and then some people invent it. I think it's there naturally.
And why do you think that? Why do you think that?
I mean, it's evidenced a lot of ways. I think conscience is an evidence of that. I think
that's a stretch.
I'll
give you a stretch on the consciousness being a thing as that evidence of spiritual. Because what do you mean? I mean, we can go. That's a rabbit hole we could go down. What is consciousness?
We don't know.
Well, right? And we're getting into this whole AI thing. Like, what is conscious? Like, what is all that? Like,
no. I'm not consciousness. I'm saying conscience. Like,
just feeling guilty. See, I'll disagree with.
A sense of.
I'm sorry, I misheard you.
Of some things that are just inappropriate. They are just wrong, and that are.
But doesn't that change over time?
It doesn't change, and it does change society to society. And that's why I think that there's a problem. There are things that other societies do that are considered they must do it, and things that I look at and go, that's abhorrent. And they look at things I do that I go, yeah, this is fine. And they go, no, that's abhorrent. So that I would really strongly disagree with that. That isn't if it was consistent. In my opinion, the evidence that you were looking for there would be for all societies to share all the same things, and most importantly, is if that thing they shared did not provide any evolutionary advantage. Because as of right now, generally speaking, that conscious provides a lot of evolutionary advantage. Murder is bad. Yeah, well, we need our society to continue to propagate, so don't kill each other. More of us live, more better. All that sort of thing. That's if every society shared things that were not a thing that was not evolutionary advantageous, I would then go like, sure, there's a weird thing for us to have developed. But I also go, if you go down the evolution path, you believe evolution, then you go like, well, we're the same species. We all have a similar growth pattern where we evolved from. Like, there's nothing to say that has to be supernatural.
Okay. So just so I'm clear, you're stating that when it comes to matters of conscience, we can call it morality, call it right and wrong, whatever, you believe that it is entirely relative
Oof.
to
That is a
where you
great
are and what
question.
society you're. I mean, that's what you're implying.
It is. No, you're absolutely right.
There is nothing that is absolutely wrong or absolutely good.
This is where we run into great question. We should be drinking beer.
I've got some in the fridge.
I'm not
Seriously,
surprised.
do you want some?
No, so that's a great question. I don't know. And this is where we run into what I was almost saying we need to get to, which is the so what portion of like, okay, you believe it's why, what does that actually matter? How does that actually impact life, humanity, survival? I do believe that there is some things are right and some things are wrong. I can't tell you why. If that makes sense.
I know you
and,
can't.
And I'm willing.
Sorry.
No, yeah, sure.
I'm just teasing.
No, yeah.
But of course you can.
But from my opinion, though, I'm also of the mindset, if I have fun, then you start talking about free will.
Yeah.
Do people have free will?
Yep.
I don't think people have free will.
Oh, really?
Interesting.
I do not think, because the more that I have Google researched, and I use that, I'm making sure everybody knows what.
Appreciate the air quotes, man.
Yeah, the level of research on me. But but you start learning about people that had like massive personality changes and doing terrible things, and then they had a tumor in their brain that was putting pressure on this one portion of their brain, and that changed their personality completely.
Yeah.
And it becomes a situation where, or you look at the way people's behaviors change. Kids in the school, whether they eat breakfast in the morning or not, all of that stuff. I mean, and that's leaving out the like real obvious ones, like, well, you're not the same on meth. Like leaving out all that stuff. So you get to a situation of what free will do you have? What is free will? Can we free will a thing? And so my opinion is we don't have free will. We are physiologically controlled by a combination, essentially by our environment. But if you mention that to society falls apart. You cannot have a society with the concept that it's never your fault. No matter what you did, series of things. So therefore, we as a society have to live as if free will is a thing in order for us evolutionarily to continue to exist. So that's my weird opinion of, so when you ask about like, do I think Sam's right and wrong? I think it is. The way I get there though is you don't really have free will. You act the way you act because of all the physical stuff that led you to where you are. That's why you act the way you act. And if you do something you you shouldn't have it because we think you should have. But it's not a big deal. It's not really your fault. It's a matter of the circumstances you are in. But society can't act that way because it would fall apart.
Right. And to be fair, the free will debate is very alive and well among Christians.
Oh yeah,
they argue over
Calvin's
free will.
a great guy.
And it's the same thing where it's like there are some who refuse to believe that we have any free will. I mean, for the same fear that if we told people they don't have the free will, things will,
things fall apart.
Things will go crazy. Yeah, that is a normal. I mean, just saying that's just a natural human thing. That's
Sure.
not. I wouldn't argue that is a theological or an evolutionary issue. That's just a people thing about the mystery of human.
That's a good point.
But you were.
I was going to interject. I don't want to derail your train of thought. So finish what you were going to say.
I started going down. I think conscience was the first thing on the list. That I think in my opinion, bears witness of a sense of accountability to something or someone.
Sure.
And I do think that there are universal rights and wrongs. I do think that, and we can disagree on that.
What would some of those be, though? Like, don't kill people?
Yeah, I think. I think people can believe something is right. That doesn't mean it is.
So I'm just wondering one or two of these
like
universal truths
like
of right and wrong.
A eugenic genocide.
So when God said to do that,
if I think I should kill everybody of a certain,
But so that's the. I mean, you have triggered my trap card. No, that's literally like the Old Testament. God literally saying, "Go commit genocide."
And
he's perfect and good, right? But that's one of the universal bads. How do you reconcile that in your head?
And just to be clear, in the Old Testament, in Hebrew scriptures,
in Judges,
there were times when they were entering into Canaan, the Promised Land, and they had to wipe out
Yes, and there were times when they didn't wipe everybody out,
Right.
and they were
God got
punished by
ticked.
God
Sure.
because they did not commit genocide genocidally enough. And that was a repeated message for them was, no, when I tell you go wipe everybody out, wipe them out.
Yeah.
And so you have literal genocide being commanded by the perfect good, perfectly good being. But then we say, but genocide's bad. How do you reconcile that? And maybe, and this is where my belligerent side's coming out, so if it's too belligerent, let me know. But,
No,
but how
no,
do you personally reconcile that? Like, God said, what do you think is a universal truth? You should not do this. Well, God said to do it, so therefore.
No, again, this is a debate
Yep.
that Christians have.
Absolutely.
This is a debate in seminaries. This
Yep.
is a debate among theologians. I mean, and there are smart people on both sides of the debate. You know,
Sure.
that was my political statement of the day. Yes. Very fine people on both sides of that debate.
Yeah.
And again, you know, I want to be clear. I promote the message of Jesus as a Christian, a follower of Christ. And the message of Jesus in a big way was an answer to that, to the Old Testament, to the period of the judges, as you're referring to, was a hot mess, just a mess after a mess after a mess after a mess. And it is not a book to look at and be like,
We should do that.
maybe we should, yeah, we should. And, you know, and trust me, I've been a lifelong Protestant evangelical. I'll use all the trigger words, Christian.
Yep.
And I've yet to ever be in a church service where a pastor was like, yeah, we should, you know, we should get back to the days of killing everybody. You know, that's not a thing that is taught in Christian churches.
So what do
I
you do
understand
with-
that there are stories in the Bible, and they're in there as there are terrible stories in any history book that are terrible things that happen. I understand there's a theological problem there, yeah, that we don't understand.
I think the laudability is
that's
the
okay.
problem I have. I hate to say I don't have a problem. I have a problem with genocide. I don't particularly have a problem with judges. Like, it was a time, it was a thing that happened, so be it. But to me, it sort of goes a long way towards blowing the usefulness of the Bible away, in my opinion. Because if the God of the Bible felt that that was an appropriate thing to do, or not even appropriate, that was a good thing to do, and so good that you would be punished if you didn't do it, I want nothing to do with that God. And that's where we get to my belligerent anti-theism.
understand.
That, like, no, that God is evil. And
So Charles,
what-
do you think there's any credibility what John is saying, though, that Jesus is sort of an answer to that mess after mess after mess, to show a different way, a new way?
I disagree with that based on our definition of God earlier on. Because I generally would agree with your definition of God as that's how you define it in the Bible. And if the perfect God's best solution was genocide, because we've talked about this before, about the idea that, like, hey, well, maybe that's the way humanity was. Humanity hadn't matured enough. God should have made a better humanity then. Like, I mean, if he's like, I don't buy it. It's the short answer. To me, I've never heard a judge.
But then, in that case, you're kind of blaming
So in the
God
case-
for the status of humanity. Then,
Absolutely.
it's not like humanity jacked themselves up or evolved to a certain place of jacked upness.
Correct.
And then God was like, "Let's redirect this thing and change course. Here's a better way to live."
See, but it goes back to if it's an all-powerful, perfect being. So I think I've used the analogy before with you. Like, if you're going back to, now we're into theology, which I'm all about. So you got Genesis, right? Everything was perfect, and then Adam and Eve ate the
I would
fruit,
stop you
and
there,
things
though,
were wrong.
because I don't think anything's perfect anywhere.
Okay, things were
I'm not even sure I'd put God. I'm not even sure I'd.
sure.
where I'm
So
at.
things were better,
It was
right?
good. I'm just saying, in the Hebrew scriptures, it's not perfect. It's good.
Right, and
There's a
then
propensity to become better or perhaps worse.
right, but then they eat the fruit and things get worse.
Yes.
And things keep getting worse, getting worse, getting worse. Jesus comes along and provides a way to allegedly make things better. My issue with that is you go back to the beginning and why did he put the fruit there? I jokingly referred to some friends one time we were talking about this. I called it a nuclear cupcake. It's you have a 2-year-old sitting there that hasn't eaten all day and they're hungry, and you take a cupcake that looks awesome and everything, and in the cupcake is the button that's going to launch the nukes and end the world, and you put it in front of the 2-year-old and walk out of the room. And then when they eat the cupcake, you're like, I can't believe you would do this thing. And it's like,
Sure.
no, as a dad, and that's as a dad, like as a very imperfect dad dealing with a 2-year-old. Now we've got a perfect, or even if not perfect, an omnipotent or a way more potent being. No, that's.
What if that fruit, though, is sort of a metaphor for the mess that we're supposed to avoid?
That's fine.
That we don't, and we didn't, and then there's consequences for our not avoiding that mess. Is that possible?
I disagree with that, because in my opinion, that becomes going back to the God. Why are we avoiding? Is God trying to grow us into something because He can't just make us that? I think about parenting, right? Like, so I don't. I let my kids fail.
Yeah.
That's a pretty common. That you have to let your kids fail in order for them to grow to be good adults. But I have to let them fail to become that, because I can't just go, you learned the lesson.
Right.
If I could go, you learned the lesson, that's what I would do. I would not make them go jump out of a tree and learn that falling out of the tree and breaking your arm hurts, because I'm a loving dad.
Right.
The God of the Bible, in my opinion, is not a loving dad, because He puts the nuclear cupcake out there and then goes, hey, I can't believe you guys would do that. Now you're going to live with this mess.
Right. So just the harp on that real quick.
Yes.
One observation. It sounds, again, just in all kindness.
No, be belligerent. I'm here for it.
You're kind of playing both sides of this a little bit. I mean, you out of one side, you're saying there is no God.
Correct.
And out of the other side, you're saying, and I really don't like Him.
Yes.
And so you're really mad at this God that you don't even think exists.
I'm not.
And
okay.
I would suspect you suspect the Bible's not even true. These stories of genocide aren't even true.
There's most of those.
So the bad stuff is true, but the stuff about God is not true.
The physical stuff. So this is my challenge. I think I actually get where you're coming from.
You're like trying to prove that there's no God, but then you're quoting Bible stories as if they're true and they show how terrible God is. But are you saying the Bible's true, or the Bible's not true?
Okay.
But the genocide was true, but the other parts of the Bible were not true, and that's just an observation. I'm just like,
absolutely. No, that's fair. And a lot of that's because of the way I got to my atheism. Was I raised Christian, read Bible, went God evil, went anti-belligerent, and then was going to get to the point of that we didn't really get. I was going to bring up the so what.
Yeah.
So I am of the mindset that I don't think there's a God, and if the God of the Bible is the real one, then F that guy. I don't want anything to do with him. I'm good.
Yeah.
So that's how I come to that point. I came to that atheist part by going through reading through the Bible and going.
So it was a theological deconstruction that you kind of went through,
and it
ended up with, hey, I bet none of this is true.
Right. So the story is true, probably. I mean, there's an element of it's just history, sure, whatever. But do I think that the angel of death passed over and killed a bunch of innocent babies? No.
But in a world where nothing is absolutely right or wrong, genocide seems to really offend you.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can put that on the list. That is a sin.
Ooh, what's a sin?
I mean, you seem to think it is. But you just said that nothing.
It's wrong. I agree with you. It's not a. It is not a.
I'm not trying to wind you up.
No.
To be like,
no. You're absolutely right, because it's not a completely. I hit a point where I was trying to answer all these questions personally for a long time, and then I hit the so what, and I eventually went, you know what? I don't really need. It doesn't matter. Right. I know what I'm going to do. I know what I care about, and all this other stuff doesn't matter. Right. So I think that's the biggest thing. What I was going to ask you is so the biggest deal to me is how does the existence or non-existence of God, Jesus, whatever, how does that actually impact your day-to-day life? Because what I have seen is that's often been I mentioned faith earlier, I've seen that in a very negative way, where people won't, the boat story, right? People won't, and that's, I know that maybe a little crass to be bringing up today given all the stuff going on in Texas, but people won't solve problems themselves because there's this view that God will take care of it. God has an answer. And so that's why I go, that's one of the reasons why I go, faith is dangerous.
Yes.
And that idea of going, God will fix it is a bad thing actively. Whichever God you want to believe in, it doesn't matter. You can believe in whatever. So that's, oh boy.
Just the GoPro, it's a turd.
Okay, so that's my first
Yeah,
concern, right? So like, what about if you remove God from everything? Most people's argument for why they need God to exist is a morality argument, which I think is interesting because a lot of people don't need God to be moral. So I don't understand why others do.
Right.
But
No, I agree. I mean, some of the nicest people I know are atheists, and some of the some of the not nicest people I know are Christians, and that's just
sure,
I don't think that God makes you a good person, or that's not. But that gets back into theology. So let's
Yes.
touch on theology just a little bit, just
Sure.
to clean up some of the things that were brought up here. Again, this is not has to do with the existence of God, but just so you know how a Christian would understand a story like Adam and Eve and the fruit, and why would God give them the nuclear cupcake and do that? I'm also a dad, and I give my kid a bike, right? I also buy Band-Aids because I know my kid's gonna fall off the bike.
Right.
Now, am I a bad dad for giving him a bike? And I know I'm not a prophet. I'm not omniscient, to use an omni word. But I know as a dad, he's going to go where he's not supposed to go. He's going to stop too fast. He's going to whatever. He's going to turn too whatever. He's going to fall. He's going to get bloody. He's going to have a scab. But I have the Band-Aids there.
okay,
And that's part, like you said, of letting them fail, letting them learn. And that's just part of being a good, in my opinion, being a good dad.
right,
And theologically, that would be the way the Bible explains that story. That when Adam and Eve did this, they didn't throw off God's plan, that they were like, he didn't come down and say, I can't believe you did this. Now this is all terrible. No, the Bible says that Jesus, again, the message of Jesus, was the lamb slain. That's the answer to the Old Testament from before the foundation of the world. In other words, the Band-Aid was already in place. There was already a plan for redemption and forgiveness. God knew they were going to fall into temptation. This is not like there's some reckless God that just did this and this impetuous thing. The way you're presenting it is not theologically the way Christians would understand
So-
that and read that.
correct. Understood and agreed. The challenge there, though, becomes bikes are a great example. My kids all race motorcycles, so all four of my kids hurting themselves. That happens regularly.
Right.
We're used to it.
What's your phrase? Safety
third.
Yeah.
So with the kids all, like, that's a normal thing. If there was a way for me to instill knowledge into them so they were immediately faster, better, safer riders and never would crash, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yes.
I find the idea that this omnipotent God couldn't do a better way.
Yeah.
That he had to make people and have them go through what's it called? Like generations and generations of trauma and go through all these problems in order to grow them into the type of people. That's a human solution. That's a human way of looking at it.
But you're obviously an evolutionary guy, right? You're pro. So isn't that the story of evolution? That even once we became Homo sapiens,
Yeah.
that we've been.
Just continuing to change and evolve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why can't that be the story? And God didn't start it out making us jacked up or start it out perfect. Forget all of that for a minute. That in your perception, and frankly, probably mine most days, I'm conflicted. It's that the story of continual evolution and progress, and at some point, perhaps, God was intervened and was like, "Let's go this way."
I'm fine with up to you said till God intervened.
I know you. I'm just saying.
I agree with it up until you say that God, because
I'm just saying that your characterization of what John is saying, I actually think you agree from an evolutionary standpoint that we have been
Sure.
evolving. So there's that
Right.
story already.
so that goes back to where I was saying, like, my bigger takeaway from it is not did it happen or is it true or not. It's less that, and it's more if it's true, so what? How are you going to live your life? And
Great
to
question.
me, what I got out of it is if that's true, then God is evil or not good. Therefore, I don't want anything to do with that God.
And in John's definition, therefore not God.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's how I come. So theologically, that's how I come to it. So it's the same idea. Like, okay, sure, this came through.
Well, again, that we opened with that.
Yeah.
The job description for God,
Yes.
he failed.
Correct.
so he can't be God.
Exactly.
And that's the same
You're
way
not
I
hiring
approach
him.
it. That's the same way I approach it. The only difference is I don't have on that job description that God has to be good. Now
Ooh.
we are told that God is good, and I'd love to talk about this. because
Okay.
this is a fun topic, but
I'm on board with that.
But God doesn't have to be good in order to be God.
Really?
Okay.
I think God can
he's
be
gotta be-
ultimate, and He can be perfect, and He can be eternal. He can be everywhere, but that doesn't mean He's nice. Doesn't-
Sure.
I mean,
Then-
it's still, God could still be God and not be what we think is. Well, you should
I
have
think
done
that
this, and He should have done
good
that.
and
He's-
nice are not
Got-
synonymous,
Correct.
though, because
Right.
not good could mean evil, and that's
Absolutely.
Charles's hang up.
Yes.
And so, I mean, the way that I would look at that, just say when it comes to what we call God being good,
Right.
and it's relevant because there are terrible things going on in the world right now, right?
No kidding.
Yeah, yeah. But there are. Let me put it this way: a good surgeon, right, has to cut you.
Sure.
A good
Hold up.
trainer.
Wait, just so we're clear. A good human, non-omnipotent surgeon.
Absolutely.
Okay. That keeps me my hold up. on everything.
Absolutely.
Okay.
A good trainer has to make you suffer and sweat and hurt and get sore.
Absolutely.
A good teacher has to give you a test and give you a grade. A good author has to work some conflict and complexity into the story. Otherwise, the book sucks, right? And I think that there are different ways you could perceive all of those as not being good. I mean,
Sure.
but I think God is a good surgeon. He is a good trainer. He's a good teacher. He's a good author. And yes, he does those things. And I think it's rational to just trust that he's good.
Ooh, I will disagree with that in a big way.
Right. So I hope you never need surgery.
No, I can trust the surgeon's good. I can't
Are
trust
you
that
going
in
to
a...
sue him for assault, for cutting you?
But you're about
with a
to have
deadly
two
weapon?
separate things, because remember, your God is omnipotent, which means he could do all of these, have the same end result without the penalty, the pain, the negativity. And he is choosing to inflict the pain without needing to. The surgeon can't fix your problem without cutting you. The personal trainer can't make you stronger without you hurt, without some level of soreness or everything. But God is omnipotent, which means he can do anything. So he should be able to get that end result without the pain in the middle. And if he's causing the pain in the middle just for shits and giggles, be back to what I
This is
said,
where I
evil
jump in,
God.
though. I'm not sure.
I
he's
don't
causing
think
it.
so.
By your own definition, there's an evolutionary process that's filled with all kinds of trauma.
That allegedly came from him. Or is he...
Well, he started the whole thing in motion. Yeah.
So if he started the whole-
I think that it's easy to make assumptions like, well, God shoulda, coulda, woulda,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, I mean, nowhere in the Bible that I am aware of does it ever say that God could have, should have, would have done. It's like, now obviously what I'm saying about evolution isn't necessarily going to line up with John, but it's like this whole thing started. He said, "Let there be," and it all happened, and then things it happened.
got out of control, he didn't have control.
Well, I mean, you could call it, yeah, you could certainly call it out of control, but it's almost like instead of saying, well, God could have started it better, I mean, God can start it however he wants, and I think he started it through this glorious process that we call evolution, and he's perhaps intervened to direct the way we're going. But I'm repeating myself.
Okay, I understand the point with the surgeon thing,
Yeah.
but and maybe that's not the best illustration. I was just, but let's suppose a trainer said, "Hey, instead of doing 100 push-ups, take this pill. You'll bulk up." If the teacher said everybody gets an A, if the author just made everybody good guys and nothing happens in the book, it's just
Right.
smiles the whole time. Are they good? Is that a good teacher? Is that a good author? Is that a good trainer for doing that?
Depends on the goal. If the goal is to pass the class and the teacher just gives you an A, that's a great teacher. If I don't give a crap about learning the topic, if you went back in like high school and it was some class I didn't care about, health or whatever, it was like, yeah, give me the A. I don't care. I'm not here to learn. I'm just here for the grade. So, but if your goal is to teach, then they're a bad teacher.
Right. I'm saying if the goal is teaching,
right.
That's not a good teacher.
But that's my thing. So I think
Right.
like a lot of my stuff with the God, if you get, and we're back and forth between, and it's kind of enjoyable, why I don't believe in God, but if there was a God and it was the God of the Bible, he's evil.
Right.
So we have two discussions going on, and I'm on board with both of them. But the one about like, if you take away the omnipotence, I think the evilness of the God of the Bible is easier to talk your way out of. That's my hang up on what makes God evil in my mind. The God of the Bible is evil is because he is omnipotent and this was the best he could do. That to me is a problem. It's like if you got like your idea, like he started it and got out of control, and he's trying to keep us on the tracks. And it's like you're chasing after your 2-year-old. And you play there's a game that came out where your kid tries to kill himself the whole time. You play, like one person plays like the kid, and everybody else plays the babysitters, and they're running around trying to keep the kid alive. And the kid like throws himself. You're the kid. You run and touch yourself in like an oven, all kinds of stuff, trying to kill yourself. If that's what we're going at, and we've got this humanity trying to go off the rails in all these different crazy ways, and God's going, oh. I made it, but I got to keep this thing under control. Okay, he's not omnipotent then. And then that evilness becomes a little bit more to, it's the best he could do.
Well, he could be omnipotent, and I'm not saying I buy this, but he could be omnipotent and withhold his power to do.
Then we're back to the evil.
He's evil, right? I got it. And that's the, there's a famous, it's a paradox.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. I can't remember where it's like, if God is all good, why is there evil and all powerful? Yeah. But like for me, like going back to the kid, if my kid throws himself in the oven and I have the capability to pull them out and I don't, nobody would say I'm still a good dad. Right. So from my opinion, if humanity's off course and God keeps doing these little things to correct it, but he could have done it without causing all the problems. He could have we don't need to wait till they get in the oven. If they could have done that, but he chooses not to, we go back to, in my opinion, either he doesn't have the capability, or if he does, he's evil.
I'm pretty sure that...
Or you don't have free will.
Or you don't have free will, which is
part of the equation in that.
Yes.
This
scenario.
episode holds the record for analogies.
So yeah,
You guys are fired.
so yeah, so there is that debate about free will, like I said, which is alive and well among Christians, among theology, and
is that so? I've never heard it from the Christians. I was told growing up, I was always taught that humans need to have free will so that we can choose God. And that's where his hands are off. I had never heard of there being a debate. Now, I know there's the Calvinism side. There's like the predestination side about there's aspects of your will that God will deign to change so he can torture you or not, Pharaoh. But as a general rule, humans have free will because they need to choose God.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, I'm just talking about in this.
I got a question for you.
I'm talking about in the sense of the kid on the bike, the kid climbing in the oven, the kid climbing, whatever, whatever scenario you want to put in there. Yes, you could stop the kid from doing those things. Right. And that's kind of your beef is why doesn't God just stop us from making bad choices?
Why doesn't he fix the problem?
Why doesn't he fix the problem?
Yeah.
So is the problem our choices or no?
Whatever the problem is, why does he make it bad? Why does he make why are there consequences?
Why did he give them choices to make? Is that the question?
Why did he give them choices to make? Why did he make them have bad things happen so they could learn lessons? Why did they make the genocide happen? Why wasn't there everybody peace? Everybody get along. Everybody be nice. It'd be a boring story.
That would be a good God. A good God would just make everybody nice all the time, no choices. That would be a good God to you.
I think it would be a better God if he had the power. Because I've run into that all. Is a good, define good. Oh wow, now we're going good.
Yeah,
no. So
that's what I'm trying to figure out.
I struggle with the idea.
Your God is very bad because he's giving us this freedom to choose, and so I'm saying, it implies you think that that he would be a better God. You said right, if he didn't give us so many choices. If he just kind of just made everybody nice all the time.
I could see that as being better.
That would be
or at least if he didn't direct people to do bad things. Or didn't purposely, when people were trying to make the right choice, go, nope, just kidding. You need to make the bad choice. I'm trying to make a point right now. Could you be bad, Pharaoh? I think that Pharaoh story is really another good one of God being evil, where you have that whole, they're making the right choice, right? And then God hardened his heart. And it happened over and over. I'm like, the dude was trying to do what you wanted him to do. And you were like, no, hold on. I'm making a point right now. You need to be bad. So I think that those sort of things.
And that, that is another aspect to the goodness of God. And we might disagree on this. I mean, since we've agreed on
That's
everything.
what we're here for, right?
But, you know, I love the study of, we call it epistemology,
Yep.
like just how we know what we know.
Yes.
And
How we think we know
how
what we think we know.
what we think we know and all. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. And basically, there are things that we can know and that we do know, right? There are things that we can know that we just don't know or don't know yet, right?
The Dick Cheney.
Yeah. The Donald Rumsfeld. Right?
Oh, is it Rumsfeld? Oh, sorry.
The unknown known.
Unknowns and unknown unknowns, yeah.
There are things we don't know, or things that we can't know that we don't know, right?
Correct.
And then there are things that we can't know that we seem to say we know. This is where it kind of faith
Sure.
and the craziness comes in, and the insanity on either side. I mean, the insanity of faith and the insanity of atheism,
Sure.
I would argue, is in that realm of saying you know something you can't possibly know.
Sure. I would absolutely 100% agree with that.
When it comes to the goodness of God, however, I think that falls in something we can know that we don't know. And that is, I don't know why some of these things happened in the Old Testament.
Sure.
I don't know why a camp full of girls got swept away in a flood. I don't know why, my brother's in the hospital. I don't know. There are a lot of things I don't know why. That doesn't mean there is no answer.
Okay.
It just means I don't know the answer. And I mean, you can put a calculus test in front of me and I could just say, there is no answer and give it back. The truth is, I just don't know the answer.
Sure.
And so I can't sit here and say that A, there's no God, or B, God is bad, because I don't know why this happened and why this happened and this happened, right?
Right.
Other than just to be self-aware enough to say, I trust him. He's a good teacher. He's a good author. He's a good trainer. He's a good surgeon. I don't get it, but I'm not going to sue him for malpractice.
Sure.
I think that I trust that he's good, even when I don't know the answer. And that doesn't mean that I will never know the answer. Maybe later in life, something will happen my eyes will open, the eyes of my heart will open. Whatever.
Yes.
But where something will make sense. And that has happened in my life. There's terrible things that have happened in my life that later I look back and I'm like, oh, that's kind of good that happened.
Yep. No, absolutely.
And at the time it sucked, but now there was something woven in there. So there is, to me, I see that as an evidence of God, right?
Okay.
Along with conscience, along with patterns. I think you touched on what I would say is an evidence of God, and that is the sense of forever and eternity and infinity. You talked about even there's infinite numbers between 1 and 2, right?
Yeah.
We really can't fathom what infinity even is, right?
Right.
But we have this sense of it. We have, not only in our language, but interestingly, every language on earth has words like forever and always and never, and these words that appeal to something that's outside of this material existence that we have. So that's a clue. Now, I would argue the Bible said this, that he has woven eternity into the hearts of every person.
Sure.
As potentially this sense, this spiritual sense, a sixth sense, a homing device, if you will, that just kind of says, hey, there might be more to life than this. This might not be all that there is. Maybe whether that be a spiritual thing, whether that be an afterlife, which we hadn't even got into, but maybe my sense of conscience is appealing to something outside of myself.
Sure.
So
I can see that.
your question.
Yeah, I got a few, and it's my show, so let me just jump in for a second.
You stay out of this.
No, I feel like I haven't wanted to interrupt, quite honestly. But John, if you could do 30 seconds, because you talked about the message of Jesus being the best message for humanity, the best hope for humanity. Yeah. Can you, from your perspective, sum that up in 30 seconds or so, what that is?
So I'll start this way. Back to the goodness of God. The idea that that somehow pain and suffering and tears and death disprove that God is good, I think is actually a clue. That we have an internal, intuitive, instinctive sense that if God is all good and all powerful, in his presence there is no suffering, there's no tears, there's no death, there's no pain. The Bible speaks of a place where God is, where there is no suffering, no tears, no death, no pain. It calls it heaven, right? Jesus says, he prays, our Father who is in heaven, right? Your name is perfect. He says that, hallowed, right? And then he says, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Jesus even recognizes that, hey, earth is not like heaven, that there is suffering and pain and tears and death. Whereas in heaven, where God is, there is no suffering, pains, and tears and death. So it's ironic that we sit around and we have these debates that how God can't be good because we have suffering, pain, and tears and death. To me, that's a clue. That's a clue. That's the homing device of, on a spiritual level, of your soul longing for that place that is the presence of God. In essence, the cry of Jesus is your cry. There's a way that Jesus identifies with us in that, hey, the world is not the way it's supposed to be. And we all know it's not the way it's supposed to be. I mean, we can sit here and argue over what the biggest problem in the world is, but no one is going to say there are no problems in the world, right? We know that the world is not the way it's supposed to be. And I think that that's a clue of why the Bible talks about this place called heaven. Now, the problem is, back to the message of Jesus, we long to go there, but we shouldn't. We shouldn't go there. I shouldn't go there. It won't be heaven anymore if I go there because I am prone to make bad choices and do bad things. And, so there has to be a remedy in place in order to make that happen. And that was the message of Jesus. It was hey, this world is not like that world. I want to bring that world here. But the only way we can do that is we have to fix this problem. We call that problem sin. It's not, some people don't like that word, but that's what it's called theologically. And there's a way to solve that sin. And it's not through taking a pill. It's not through, he just cancels it and excuses it. He forgives it. It's the payment of a debt. He didn't cancel the debt. He paid the debt.
Identified it and paid it.
Yeah.
You would say.
And which is
To himself.
Episode 3. 6, Sarah.
Man, he doesn't believe in God, but he does believe in the Trinity. I'm loving this guy. This is great. So man, this is, but so
You never know what you're going to get with it. No.
no, that's great. No, and that's what we want. We want to pull all these threads because I think this is
See, and that's how I got to the atheist side, is basically all of these. I had all these discussions. Everything you're saying, I have heard before. You're very eloquent with it, but I've heard it all. And it all has that but what about this? But what about this?
Sure.
And it always runs out. And that's where I go, that's been the challenge I've always had. And it's never, there have been things that I had, and that led me to my belligerence phase. Mm-hmm. And then I got to the so what? And that's where I am now, where I go, I don't believe in God. None of it needs to exist. And if he did exist, who cares? Mm-hmm. And my life wouldn't change. Just going to keep moving on. I can be a good person. I have a great family. I have, great life. Everything's awesome. Yeah, things could be better. Yeah, there's some challenges, but that's normal. And I do my best to live my life and help others where I can.
All right. I want to ask you. I think my brain is often split. Half is like this believer and half is this atheist. So here's the atheist side. And I wouldn't say atheist, but a super skeptic, okay? Mm-hmm. Back to, I got a question for you, Charles, and then we should probably wrap up and I'll let you guys have a last word. You can have a last word for 30 minutes apiece. Okay. But John, so back to I love your analogy about, are there more fish? And but we have to have this spiritual antenna, heart, to be eyes, whatever, to see, to even begin to discover God. Great phrase. What would you say, though, to the argument that, well, when all you got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and like you're just constantly looking, you're just assuming there is a God, and so everywhere you look, you find him. Whereas Charles is like, nope.
Right.
How would you respond to that?
The question is how do some people find God and other people can't?
No, I'm saying the criticism to you might be that well, you're looking for what you're finding what you want to find. You see what you want to see. You hear what you want to hear.
Right.
You want to see God. Oh, go figure. There you see God.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that is, again, that's a clue to human nature that
Okay.
we are all inherently selfish. That comes from the Bible. And we see what we want to see, and we don't see what we don't want to see. We hear what we want to hear. We don't hear,
So how do you know you're
and
not
naturally, and at the same time, we project. I mean,
Absolutely.
conservatives worship a very conservative Jesus, and liberals worship a very liberal Jesus.
100%.
Ironically, Jesus agrees with me on everything. That kind of the old saying.
Yep.
So, and that infects all the theologies. That's why I'm trying to stay out of the because any theology, going back to Calvin or whatever,
Yeah.
there is selfishness baked into it.
Oh, they're just fun to discuss.
Yeah, and but I think sometimes yes, people do find God by just genuinely seeking. I mean, the Bible says everybody that seeks will find, right? There are others who I think just anecdotally are surprised by God. They weren't looking for God, and then something happened, and they're like, I don't know how this just happened. They're, I know you don't believe in the miraculous thing, but
No, unexplainable things happen.
yeah.
I'll agree with everything that's unexplainable.
So, right, and in a philosophical context, you can't argue with that. I can't tell the lady that her toast didn't look like Jesus when it came out. You can't argue with that. Like she saw what she saw, and there is a certain personal anecdotal limit to the philosophical side to all of this. But when you act like kind of pulling the threads, like it seems you think it comes apart.
Yes.
I'm confident enough, just because I'm a thread puller too. I mean, and I go to church, and my friends at church, we're all the same. I mean, Steve and I grew up doing this. We have long time. What about this? What about this? Well, this might not be. He's still pulling.
Yep.
And
I'm actually out of thread.
right, right.
I gave up.
And again, and I think that is good. It's good to question. It's good to doubt. It's
But how
good
do you
to
know
have
that
grace
you're
for
not
people
just
who doubt.
seeing what you want to see? That's what I'm trying to get to. When you're discovering God and you keep finding Him,
Right.
and everywhere you look, it's more and more evidence, more and more clues. How do you know that you're not just seeing what you want to see?
Well, that is true, and I think that is a real human psychosis, if I can say that.
Absolutely.
And
Crazy person
there
doesn't know
is-
they're crazy.
Yeah.
Not that you're crazy.
No, but there. I mean, I remember a lady telling a story in church about, she was at work and they were out of cups and she really wanted a drink, and then like a delivery man came by and dropped off cups, and this was like her testimony about the Lord. He provided cups for me, and it was like, me and the cameraman in the back were laughing. I'm like, like, really? Like this is, so. But to her, that was the thing. Mm-hmm. There is not some, magic writing on the wall, to use a Bible phrase, that everyone will see at some point in their life, the writing on their wall. It doesn't. That happened for one guy at one party, and we use that expression to just mean general ways that people experience God.
Yep.
I do think that there is a good string to pull on is, I think, kind of where we started getting off a little bit, and that is some of the moral implications of these worldviews and the effect that Christianity had on society, which I know you believe is not good.
I would actually probably argue both. It's had positive and
and
negative.
you know,
yeah.
and to look at some of the effects atheism or naturalist worldview has had on society and on the world, and I think that's also provides clues to see perhaps the hand of God through history and through why events unfold the way that they do. But I don't know how much time we got, but we can get into more stuff.
Well, I know we could go
with
on
that.
forever.
So
Okay, so let me pause that, and I'm going to use my other side
go
of
for
my
it.
brain here. A little while ago, you talked about you were pretty sure there is no God, but you acknowledged maybe there's a energy or something beyond kind of thing,
Not really beyond. I'm okay with there being things we don't know. I'll agree with
but not a conscious presence or something like that.
even that I would be willing to say, sure, maybe. Who knows? My big thing is saying that
An intelligence? Could there be an intelligence?
sure. But my big thing is you can't say, once you say it's supernatural is where I draw the line.
Okay.
And supernatural can be who knows? For a long time, nobody knew what like electromagnetism,
100%.
radio waves, all that sort of stuff. It's invisible. You can't
It's all
see
magic.
it.
It's magic.
It really is. I mean, that's how we're doing all this.
Yeah, exactly.
oh yeah,
So that I have no problem with that concept. My main issue, like, is is the omnis. If you remove most of that, then it
Well,
becomes
that's-
like, okay, there are like every sci-fi has.
To John's
aliens
point,
now.
that's getting to some of the theology of
Sure.
things. But I'll say this: there are two reasons that I tend to believe in God, and I'm big on the Jesus piece too.
Okay.
But just that aside, apes and AI.
Okay.
Apes are pretty close to us in many, many ways, but they do not share the same intelligence and awareness and consciousness that we have. Would you agree to that?
Sure.
And so we're able to look we could go way down, go to like ants and flies
Right.
and mosquitoes and all of that. But just take apes because they're so similar to us. And we're like, we look at them and we are aware
Sure.
that we, in fact, are the higher level of consciousness, intelligence, and awareness. So what the heck makes us think that there isn't something beyond? Because the ape has no idea what we're doing right now. We could ask the ape, what is 2 + 2? And the ape he doesn't even know that 2's means something, right? And we do. So who are we to think that we're the top of the chain?
Absolutely agree.
And then when we look at AI, which is this obviously evolving, technology, that many are saying is going to develop a consciousness of its own one day. Like it's happened. It's like, so we're like here, we're like, we already know that that's possible. So I don't know how we can sit here and be like, nope, this is it, what we see. When we know, like, because what's the difference between the ape and us saying
Okay,
that?
that's fair. So I think it's important to a couple distinctions there. The first one is you're touching on with the whole ape thing. What's in like every sci-fi leans into it, where some progenitor alien comes through, and I'm pretty sure I mispronounced that word. It comes through and just seeds life, and that's why that was Star Trek's explanation why every alien looks like a human because they were all seeded by the same thing.
Is that why they
But
speak English too?
It is. It's amazing that it worked out that way. So helpful. So I have no disagreement that there's not a possibility that there's some other life form. My issue goes back to the supernatural, because that ape could reach out and touch you. They have no clue what you're doing or anything like that. But the ape's going to know its caretaker. It can go out and go touch. So if like, did you guys watch V back in the day?
Yes.
Like
The Resistance.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, forget the Resistance, but like literally, like alien ships show up over space, or over top of the cities, and people bomb down. They're like, yeah, by the way, or not people, aliens. And by the way, we made you. We did all of this. This is all us. Okay, cool. So you're our definition of God, but you don't meet your definition of God, right? They're just another being. They're not all powerful, but they are more powerful. They're not all knowing, but they are more knowing.
So I'm just want to clarify. You're open to the idea of other life forms, so long as they are physical life forms.
Yes.
You're not open to the idea of spiritual life forms.
Correct.
Okay, just me.
Yeah. So I think that, to me, the apes thing is not a counter. it's sure. And maybe like I made the joke earlier about maybe we're all just living in a turtle bowl on somebody's counter somewhere. Or the Men in Black, we're all in a marble.
Right.
Like,
That's
like
what
I have no, that does not counteract any of my thoughts.
Yeah.
What was the other one you're
Just
saying?
AI,
The AI, we'll see.
consciousness that's evolving beyond us.
I don't know. Defining it as a consciousness is still TBD.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Okay. Well, this has been fantastic. I don't want to prematurely cut this off, but I don't even know how long we've been going. So just start to wrap it up.
So I think we should wrap it up with the so what. So you believe in
I
God.
have one question. I wanted.
Yeah.
So John, you brought up very early on.
This is Travis, guy, the voice that you hear. So maybe turn yourself
The
up a little
voice
bit
of
for
God. No, I mean,
So John, you brought up very early the message of Jesus. What did you? I know you brought up Jesus and heaven and how he talks about that. But what is the message of Jesus to you?
Okay. We kind of did this, but
I could.
I mean, there are many iterations.
do you
of
want
this.
me to try to say what I think you said?
No, so the message of Jesus, I mean, short and simple. God did not send Jesus into the world to condemn the world. It's very clear. And I should say he didn't send me to do that either. Like, it's not my job to condemn you or anybody else. And Jesus didn't do that. He sent Jesus into the world to save the world because the world was in bad shape. It is in bad shape. We all know this. We can't pretend the world is not in bad shape. Even from the book of Judges, it was in bad shape. God sent Jesus to the world, not to condemn the world, but to save the world, to provide a means of salvation. I'm trying to make it short. So, and he did this because, as the Bible says, out of love. Now, it's not any love that you and I can even begin to fathom. It's this other level of love that I think we can get glimpses of it. I think in human relationships, but it was this love that caused God to give Jesus so that anyone who believes in Jesus, you don't like the word belief, but
I think trust is a better
it
word.
says shouldn't perish but have everlasting life. That will be in heaven, with the God that you think God ought to be, right? God is not willing or doesn't want people to be perishing. I think that's an idea that gets misunderstood in a lot of theological circles too, where they seem to think that God wants some people to to perish. But the Bible makes it clear repeatedly that God doesn't want that. In fact, he provided a means of salvation. And that's through Jesus. And to be frank, Jesus said it's exclusively through Jesus. And that's a tough pill for some people to swallow. But he made it very unequivocally, unapologetically clear that the way to the Father is through him, and there's no other way. And again, you lose some people on that one. I get you. I don't have a problem with that because I see it as objective reality, and objective reality is exclusive by nature anyway. There's only one key that opens my car. There's only one password that gets into my email. It's okay that there's one way to heaven. I'm actually glad there's only one way to heaven and not 800,
Those are great
800
analogies.
different ways.
Because I know some people that can use different keys to get into your car. And I know people that will get into your email without using that password. So I think those are fantastic analogies for it because it's like,
So you can maybe hack your way into heaven.
why not?
Oh, good luck. Try it. So, but the way that it's been provided is through Jesus. But the message of Jesus is this concept that we have, this longing for this kingdom of heaven that we have instinctively inside. And he was the vehicle to which he could bring that to us and bring us to it. I will say, towards closing, I know there's a lot more to talk about, but
Oh, we were going to solve this tonight. I thought that
Right.
was the agreement.
I thought it was,
you know, and I think, and
I was hoping one of you would make me decide.
but I think that, you know, one thing that people, I think, lose sight of, and just to kind of remind, you know, my friend Charles and other people that may want to understand this Christian faith, and that is, at the end of the day, it is a hope. That's what it is. Faith is the substance of things we hope for. That's Hebrews. Romans 8 says we're in this hope we are saved. First Peter says give a reason for the hope that is in you. Colossians, Christ in you is the hope of glory. We should be, Hebrews says we have this hope as an anchor for our soul. At the end of the day, it's a hope. That's what it is. I hope there's a God. You hope there's not, to be honest. I hope the Bible is true.
I hear what you're
You
saying.
hope it's not.
Yeah.
I hope that there are eternal consequences for my decisions, and perhaps you hope there's not. I don't know, but at the end of the day, the message of Jesus is a message of hope, and that's what we carry around. Now, there are confirmations and revelations, if you will. You know, you probably don't like that word, along the way that confirm and affirm that hope, but it's a hope.
Yeah, and I think that actually gets to what I would say is the wrap up of the so what. And this is where my belligerence has dropped off as I've gotten older, is like, if faith is a hope for you and it doesn't cause you to do bad things or increase the suffering in the world, then I don't care. Right. You can hope away. Yeah. To me, it's more of it's not a thing we're thinking about anymore because whatever. And from what I see, that hope that gives a lot of people has turned oftentimes into very, very negative things. Yeah. And a lot of times it is used, that hope is the reason, the precise reason for those terrible actions is often directly attributed to that hope. Right. And that's where I have a problem and why I say that faith is a problem.
So I mean, a couple other things, just to back to the so what, because these things do have effects. And you expressed a while back that you were concerned about kids. You know, I mean, you're a dad, and you're talking about kids, sure, you know, being caught very young, being thrown into church and thrown into Christian camps and Christian schools and things like that, and being fed the propaganda. Yep. And you seem to categorize that as generally as a bad thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, there's some standard of morality that you're appealing to in these things, but to you that is bad.
Yes.
To do that.
And I completely agree. I can't prescribe my standard of morality.
And and that's fair. And I would just say an alternative view to that. I think it's bad, or perhaps worse, to tell kids that they are a soulless, spiritless animal, a species, and that has no moral direction or moral accountability.
Why do you have to tell them either? Why do you have to tell them either? Why can't it be I believe, others believe this? Because, I mean, if you have the little antenna thing, right, like we talked about earlier, sure, then it becomes a matter of like, if my kids came back and they were like, hey, Dad, I believe I'm a Christian because of X, Y, Z. I would go, don't do bad stuff. So be it. Like, my belligerentness is now gone. I'll probably still argue with them, especially once they're 21 and we can we're going to go at it. But at that point, it's more of like, sure, it's fun discussion of that, as opposed to really trying to convince you for some greater purpose. But I think if I sit there and go, to tell a kid, I think it's just as bad to go like, no, there's absolutely not. I don't want to brainwash the kid either way because I think that causes problems. I try to let them learn on their own. The challenge with trying to let them learn on your own is when kids are little sponges and they pick up whatever their parents are. So there's only so much that can go with that. Like at the end of the day, your kids do pick up a lot of your morality, your beliefs, and all that's going to come up. I try to encourage them to investigate on their own within reason.
So if someone told your kids, God made you, God loves you, God has provided a way of salvation and eternal life for you, you're cool with somebody telling your kid that?
It depends on their age. Yeah. It happened a lot early. It's part of why I ran into trouble with my parents. Is they wouldn't stop doing that. They would have long lectures with my kids, and I would say, "Please stop," and they would ignore me and just keep doing it. So I had some challenges with that. But once they hit a certain age, like I have a 15-year-old, sure, you're welcome to try to explain anything to her, and like you're going to have that discussion as she's 15. Like she's going to have her own opinion. She's hitting a point where she needs to have her own opinions. She needs to have strong enough opinions on whatever they are that she can defend them herself and not just kind of fall into whatever the last person told her. If she wants to hear that, go to church and hear that discussion, that's fine. 7-year-old, a little bit less. You're a little younger, you're a little bit more impressionable. A little bit more like if somebody from a position of authority told you this is the way it should be, this way it is, they're going to be like, well, okay, you're an adult, you said that, so be it. Yeah. And then we get into a lot of challenges of like, well, Dad said it's not, but this other person of authority said it is, and now I've got a problem. Which one's true? And that causes its own issue. So that's how my view is. So as they get to a certain age, I don't know what that age is. I think Judaism says 13 is when you're considered an adult, right? So like sometime around there where you start to become like, yeah, you can start forming your own opinions and have the backbone sounds like the wrong term, but to have the backbone to really sort of like, no, I'm not just going to get easily persuaded. If you want to talk to me about something else, and either way, I think it can go. If your parents are Christian, you're likely to come up with that as a default setting, right? And then if somebody's like, no, there's no God. What do you mean there's no God? All right, well, let's have a discussion about that.
And you had said earlier that if there is a God, if God exists, that doesn't make a difference. Actually, I don't know. You said I may believe in God or not believe in God, and it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, it's like you can. That's what I changed my opinion. Like as long as you're not doing. I've gotten to that point for a long time. I tried to convince everybody who believed in God that they were wrong, and they need to change their opinion, and that's crazy. So now I'm at the point where I'm like, you can believe in God all you want. I'm going to look more at like how you act. What do you like as a person? Do I want to be around you? Do you do good things? Do you really care about other people, or do you use your Christianity as a cudgel to beat people over the head with, or do you use it as a tool to try to guide yourself into driving yourself to do more selfless acts than you would do otherwise? Right. To some large extent, I forget which philosophical term it is, but that ethical term is just like the end results are really what matter. Whatever you believe what you want. Okay. Are you making the world a better place? Cool. You're not? F off.
Yeah. So would you be willing to apply that standard across the board? I mean, I feel like, yes, if you see Christians doing bad things, then you say that defeats the credibility of Christianity to you.
Sure.
Right. If you see, just say, evolutionists do bad things, which they did, does that discredit evolution?
I would say no, because it's not being done for evolution's sake.
Absolutely.
And if it is being done for
eugenics movement,
I was like, if it is being done for evolution's sake, I was getting there. If it is being done for evolution's sake, it's a whole separate discussion. And that's where I say, like, no, that's still wrong. And that, just like I used to, like I said, for a while, it was like all Christians are discredited. It doesn't change whether it's true or not, in my opinion. Like Christians doing bad things does not reduce my belief or increase my belief in any of that. It just goes, but it makes me go more towards Christianity as a source of bad for the world. Adds one to the negative column versus however many they have in the good column, right?
Sure.
And then same thing with the evolutionists or atheists going, well, we can do eugenics because that'll make things better and do all these terrible things. Okay, well, that's going to add some to the negative column, and they've also got some in the good column, and it kind of works out that way.
Okay.
So.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I think that was intellectually honest and fair. I think that's good. I just want to get back to your thesis statement that society would be better off without Christianity,
I think I said without faith.
without faith.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
If I didn't, that's probably more what I meant.
Okay. Because I think we will find some agreement on this, and that is, church people suck. Christians have done terrible things. Christians do terrible things now. I mean, and 100 years from now, there will be Christians doing terrible things.
Sure.
I'm not going to defend that, and I don't know your personal story. There may have been times where a pastor or Christians have done terrible things to you, and I'm not going to defend them.
No.
I mean, if I could apologize for them, I would, but that's just the reality of it. I think I think medicine, for example, back to our surgeon example, medicine is good for society. Are there doctors who are greedy and exploitative
Sure.
and dishonest? Yeah. But society wouldn't be better off without medicine.
Right.
Right? I think laws are good for a society to have laws, unless you're an anarchist. But, it's another podcast.
Yep.
But our lawmakers, good Lord, they're greedy and exploitative and dishonest, right?
So I think I know where you're going with this.
So I would say, yes, there are pastors, there are church leaders, there are evangelical leaders who usually are the loudest and have the biggest megaphone that are greedy and they are exploitative and they are dishonest. That doesn't mean the world would be better off without Christianity. I think that just like medicine, just like law, I find faith in Christianity to be a valuable part, not just of society, but of my personal life, of my family life, of raising healthy kids. I raise my kids in a Christian,
Sure.
worldview. And I just want to make sure that there isn't a blurring. I mean, I want you to see that there's agreement there that while I'm defending Christianity, that doesn't mean I'm defending
All Christians.
the bad actors
Right.
of Christianity.
I think the difference is you're always going to have bad people. I don't think there's any way to get around that. Right. The challenge I have, I mean, what is the saying is, what is it like? Bad people will do bad things, but in order to get a good person to do bad things, you need religion. And so I think there's a semi-valid statement to that. How valid, we can probably debate and kind of pull up our little tally board and go back and forth as to which one, and nothing would really come of that. But I think that it's not so much that Christians do bad things that I have a problem with. I mean, beyond people doing bad things in general.
You said if my daughter becomes a Christian, like, yeah, don't do bad things.
Right. The bigger challenge I have is how many times I've seen people do bad things because they're Christians, and that becomes that hope that you were talking about becomes either the justification or what kind of the driving force that makes the bad thing happen. And if that wasn't there, most likely, maybe that bad thing would be less bad.
Yeah.
Now,
and as much as you hate that, just for the record, Jesus hates that even more.
So I've been told. I haven't talked to him, but I've heard that.
You might be surprised how much you agree with Jesus on a lot of things.
Yes.
Guys, I think that's a great place to wrap up. We could literally talk forever, but I'm supposed to take my wife to dinner. I think this is the record longest that we've gone. It's the longest.
I still feel like we're just getting more. I'm like, there's so many more things.
We can do more. We'll come back and
he said a
part
lot.
two.
Yeah.
I know. Record on time and record on analogies. And I tell you guys, I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll do this again.
Yeah, this was fun.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Inside the Divide, watching, listening, whatever you did. But this would not be possible without our amazing behind-the-scenes crew. We've got Travis. What'd you do?
I drink.
All right.
Tim,
What'd you do?
nothing.
Well, you would have fact checked. If there was something to fact check. Thanks again for joining. Please like, share this with everybody you know. If you have any thoughts or ideas for topics, or maybe you'd like to come on the show, drop us a line. InsideTheDividePodcast.com, and you'll find us on YouTube and everywhere else podcasts are found. See ya.